Welcome to the Pat White Show. Well, if things haven't gotten strange, they have definitely gotten strange in the Jeffrey Epstein case. And believe me, it has got really strange. It seems that the House Oversight Committee, the chairman, James Comer of Kentucky, said, we got Republicans fighting, we got Democrats fighting on this. Everybody's accusing everybody of everything. He said, I got an idea. How about we subpoena everybody involved with this and let's get things figured out. Now, he's not just subpoenaing Republicans, he's subpoenaing Democrats. He's gone up to Obama administration. He's gone to the Trump administration, the Biden administration. He said, I'm going to get everybody. And I'm going to get them talking and depositions, find out what they know and when they knew it. Now, they've set this whole thing up, and let me tell you how big it's even gotten. They have even subpoenaed Bill Clinton and Hillary. Both have been subpoenaed, but this is the way they got it set up. Now, take a look at this. They're taking FBI directors. They're taking attorney generals. They want to say, okay, y'all knew what was going on. You had all the data, all the information. What y'all do with it? What y'all know? And why didn't anybody say anything? And now they're going to get, a lot of people, their testimony. But they're going to start it here in the month of August. And here's who they're going to start with. First thing, they're going to work with Bill Barr on the 18th of August and Jeff Sessions on the 28th of August. So a couple of attorney generals going to get those done. But Loretta Lynch, she's going to be deposed on the 19th of September. And Eric Holder, this goes clear back to the Obama administration. You see, they're getting folks in here from both sides, Democrat and Republican, asking them questions. And if anybody, now I'm going to say this right now, if anybody takes the fifth, God help them, because it's going to say you know something you don't want to talk about, or you're worried about something involving you. I'm just saying, nobody better take the fifth on this, because it'll get out. Now, I'm just talking about all the people that have been subpoenaed. Here's the biggies, though. The biggies are, on October the 2nd, they're getting into Merrick Garland. He was the attorney general, right, for Joe Biden. They're going to say, hey, you got all the information. What'd you do with it? What'd you know about it? But it really gets big. Now, we're all the way going into October, folks, because on October 9th, they're going to depose Hillary. That's right. Hillary's going to be deposed. And then on October the 14th, Bill Clinton gets deposed. Now, they're going to be asking questions. And as they start interviewing people, they're going to be able to develop more questions to be asked to the other people coming along. So you start with somebody at the lower level. They call that the low-hanging fruit. You get information, get more questions to ask, and as you keep moving up the ladder, you take some of those questions from the earlier people and pose them to the people up above and see what they're going to say under oath. Because keep in mind, these depositions are under oath. And if they lie, well, Washington, probably nothing. But it could create more problems for a particular party, a particular individual. Who knows? But we got all these people coming in, and they're all going to be saying, I'm being deposed, and here's what did you know, and when did you know it? And this all involves around the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Was somebody hiding something? Was their names being hidden? Was their flight logs being hidden? What did all these attorney generals know? And why didn't they do anything? What did Bill and Hillary know? What did the FBI people know? They're all being dragged in from both sides. They've all been issued subpoenas. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be very, very interesting for the next few months. Starting this month in August, going into September, and ultimately Bill and Hillary in October. And Merrick Garland, he's going to be right before Bill and Hillary. This is going to be a very interesting party. And let's see what everybody is asked. Let's see what they answer. And let's see if somebody decides, I don't want to say nothing about nothing. Let's see if someone invokes the fifth or someone's invoke the fifth, which leads you to say somebody knows something they don't want to talk about. I'm just telling you, all this is going on as the world turns, folks, and as the Jeffrey Epstein's story turns. Now it's going to hit both sides. This is going to be a free-for-all. And how it turns out, frankly, is anybody's guess. Well, here it is, 2025, and next year, 2026, will be an election year. One of the biggest posts that is apparently being fought over already, not talking about any of the other races, this one in particular, is a state Senate race. And right now, the current state senator is Liz Brown. She's been a state senator since 2014, I believe, and she is rerunning again. Well, a new opponent has come up against her for the Republican primaries, Darren Vogt. Now, Darren was on the county council for about 12 years, I believe it was, president for around 6 of those years, and he's very active, and he's running against Liz Brown. So you have Darren and Liz. All right, they're entitled to run. It's a primary. Anybody can run who wants to choose to. He wants to run, she wants to run, fine. What's happening now, though, is people that are coming out for or against her candidacy. Right now, we've heard that Todd Rokita, he's the Attorney General of the state, has now come down. He was on WOWO with Caleb Blakesley. She has a lot of people on. She interviews them, which does a good job. She's very good at that. And she talks with these senators and these individuals about their particular positions. Now, Liz Brown is running again, and Darren Vought's running against her. Darren Vaught is a special assistant to the Senator Jim Banks. Jim Banks has publicly came out and supporting Darren running against Liz. But Todd Rokita, he's coming out as the Attorney General saying, hey, can't believe what Liz is saying. She's turned very liberal.
Liz Brown, whatever they thought of her, whatever she started out being when she became a state senator years and years ago, she's not anymore. She's one of the most liberal, undependable people in the state house. She has an F voting record on conservative issues.
She's gone off the edge, and he says things about her gaslighting. Gaslighting is a nice term for lying, okay? Use it as you see. But talking about the various issues that she's on, and he said that she was very conservative, but has become the most liberal Republican, apparently, in the House and the Senate down in Indianapolis. Well, then you bring on Bob Morris. Bob Morris is a state representative. Obviously, he's a representative, not a senator, but he comes out and he's in favor of Liz running again.
I am on Team Liz. We work well together at the Capitol, and if there's an issue in the Senate, Liz Brown is the first desk that I stop at.
Now, the problem is, who are you going to believe? Well, you don't really know. The issues, well, one of the bills they talk about is House Bill 1531, having to do with immigration and the police. And apparently it wasn't brought up, at least in official capacity. But Liz is the head of the Judiciary Committee. So laws involving judicial situations would come to her committee, and she would either hear the law or not hear the law. That's what we know. But right now we are hearing different sides, different voices, different opinions. And that's fine in a political district. You should do that. You should know what's going on. So I recommend people, I don't care who you're for, whether it's for Liz or against Liz, or if Darren Vaught is your candidate. Some people are for him, some people are against him. It just depends. Right now, it's just interesting that 1 year away from these primaries, the race has already started. There's something going on, folks. There's something happening that has turned this race into a very, very big and vocal race. So now you understand what's going on. Secretary or the Attorney General of the state of Indiana is Todd Rokita. He is against Liz Brown and her ability to repeat as a state senator. Vaught. Now, I haven't heard from him on Ms. Blakely's show. Hopefully that he will be there. We don't know. I hope he does come back. I'd like to hear what he has to say. It just depends on who you're for, who you're against. Will this be a big turnout in the primary come up next year for this particular vote? I don't know. It's beginning to look that way. So now you're hearing voices. Voices pro, con, depending on who you're for. But that's what's happening, folks. Politics has already reared its ugly head in the state of Indiana, and especially in the 15th district for the senator, the state senate. Liz Brown, current senator, Darren Vogt, he's going against her. And now we've had for and against. Todd Rokita is against Liz Brown, and he's the attorney general. Bob Morris, state representative, he's for. Not really sure which way we're going on this one, but that's what's already fighting in the beginning. How will this end up when we finally get to a state primary? I do not know. But I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a very interesting story to watch and to hear the words of all the people involved. This is the way politics should be. Get it out in the open, and let's see who's for, who's against, and why. Now you know. Let me ask you a question, you adults out there. When you were 16 years old, what was the number one thing you wanted to do when you were 16? Think about it. You know? Well, for me, when I turned 16, the number one thing I wanted to do was to get my driver's license. And I'm pretty well guessing most of you are thinking the same thing. Well, it turns out that our generation, we baby boomers and Gen Xers, that's what we wanted. When my kids were starting to grow up, first thing they wanted when they reached 16, man, they wanted the license. They wanted a car, they wanted a license, because they wanted to be on the road. They wanted to be free, do what they wanted to do. Well, it turns out that Gen Z, the loadless or the newest generation, they don't want to do that. They're afraid of driving. They're afraid of going out. And one of the reasons is this. They're saying, hey, I've got my phone. I've got my social media. I've got my apps. I can involve myself with my friends on my phone. I don't need to go out. Now, a lot of this happened back when the COVID mess showed up about 5 years ago. A lot of kids stayed inside, realized, hey, be on their phone. But if you know young people today, I mean really young folks today, you know what's going on. They're just concerned with their phone. They're day, night, whatever. Sitting at the dinner table, they're sitting there with their phones. It can be very frustrating when you think about it. But they don't want to drive. Some of them are afraid to drive. But one of the bigger reasons kids don't want to drive, because the cost of gasoline, the cost of insurance, the cost of buying a car. They're saying, hey, I don't need to do that. My parents will take me everywhere. They become passenger princesses. And you have to take them everywhere they want to go. Well, eventually they're going to figure out, hey, mom and dad don't want to do this anymore. And trust me, that happens in many families. Mom and dad are saying, I'm tired of doing that. You're not 15 for crying out loud. You're older. Well, but here's something else that's come along. The advent of the Lyft and Uber drivers. Now, how many of you know that your kids have taken an Uber or a Lyft? It's becoming very prevalent in the younger generation because they're not interested in driving. Like I said, some are scared of doing it, some are afraid they're going to be pulled over by the police if they do something wrong. But the biggest thing is their social world revolves around that thing, that phone. They have with them 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's probably one of the most disturbing things that most of us older folks, we get upset about. You're sitting around a dinner table, you want to talk to your kids, see what's going on. They're doing this. Nah, it doesn't work. But they don't want to drive. Now, some parents will say, well, that's great. I don't have to worry about a driver's license because in many places, kids have to take driver education. That could cost, what, $500, $600, $700. Don't want to do that. Like I said, cost of buying a car and the cost of gasoline, the cost of insurance, everything has gone through the roof. So now if you're a parent out there and you've got a young kid, especially a Generation Z, turns out they're afraid to drive. They don't want to drive. They know there's Uber and they know there's their social media, their cell phone, their app, the connection on the computer. They don't need to drive. So are we getting into a new generation of kids that are going to say, hey, I'm going to get me an Uber electronic driving, sort of no driver there, just push a button and it takes you where you want to go. Is that where we're headed with our young people today? And are we losing people who like to drive their own cars, drive their own way, go their own way? Appears that might be happening. So look at it now. You may enjoy your driving now, but down the road, your kids may say, I don't drive. I let somebody else or some machine do it for me. That's where we've gone, folks. The world is changing, and it's changing not necessarily in the best possible way. Well, it seems like one of the main things we talk about nowadays is nothing more than, obituaries, people passing away. And we've had another star has died on us. This one, a little more unique and a little more different. Not a big-time star, but kind of statuesque in her own particular manner. Lonnie Anderson has passed away at the age of 79. Lonnie Anderson was, you probably remember her on one particular show, if you're old enough to remember the show, was WKRP in Cincinnati. 1979 or 1978 to 1982, 4-year run. A very unique show, but anybody who worked in the broadcasting industry, especially in radio, will definitely say, yeah, boy, that represented the station I worked for in one way, shape, or form, because all of those characters in that particular TV show, if you worked at a radio station, you probably had at least one of them. And I know I worked at a couple of radio stations starting back in 1965. And yes, those characters existed. Then I went over to another station, KROD, in 69, I think it was. And I was a sports broadcaster over there. But we had some of the same characters you saw on WKRP. One in particular was the Herb Tarlick, the sales guy. Yeah, we had that one. Program director, Gary Sandy did the program director. Well, had those too. As a matter of fact, program directors on radio can be, either good, bad, or indifferent. Fortunately, I've had some good ones and had some bad ones. And probably the greatest radio program director I think I've ever had, a guy named John Zimney. He was in WOWO when I worked there. He was a true program director, one of the best I think I've ever been around. But anyway, getting back to Lonnie Anderson. Lonnie Anderson was born back in 1945. Her dad was an environmental chemist. Her mom was a model. That tells you why she kind of ended up the way she did. Interesting story. When she was born in 1945, her father was going to name her Leilani. And for some reason, he got to thinking about it. He says, when she gets to high school, it's going to be Leilani. He said, I don't think that's going to be a good plan. Now, he thought about this in 1945. I mean, not 1980, 1990, 1945. Leilani? Mm-hmm. He said, I ain't got a plan. So he named her Lonnie Anderson. And she got her big part in the TV show, the WKRP. And the producer said the reason they hired her was because she had the body of Jane Mansfield. There you go. Had the body of Jane Mansfield and the personality of Marilyn Monroe, innocent style. She played Jennifer Marlowe on that show, the receptionist. Worked for the GM receptionist. And she was very unique, but like I said, she was smart. She didn't necessarily play smart, but she was pretty smart. Now, she got herself nominated for 3 Golden Globes and 2 Emmy Awards. So obviously her acting was pretty doggone good. But she was from St. Paul, Minnesota. And obviously you've seen a lot of, that particular genre from Norway and the Northern Territories that settled up in the northern Minnesota area. And that's where she came from. Now, she was married for 4 times. Probably the biggest one that everybody remembers. She was married to Burt Reynolds. That's right, she and Burt Reynolds. Now, she ended up having 2 kids, daughter Deidre and a son Quentin. And then when she was married to Burt Reynolds, when that relationship ended, pretty acrimonious, frankly, to tell you the truth, on marital affairs and who was doing what to whom, believe me. There was a fight over the kid. And ultimately, when Reynolds passed away, she's got Quentin, the son. And also, she was involved in an affair herself, apparently, with Gary Sandy, who played the program director at KRP. And from I guess somewhere in the range of 1980, 79, 80, somewhere in there. Cost her another marriage, 4 marriages for her. But she has passed away 2 days shy of her 80th birthday, the age of 79. She'd been hospitalized for a long period of time, and she's gone now. So somebody unique who is stylish in her own way, but boy, did she remind you of characters from radio stations. If you ever worked at one, you know what I'm talking about. Because everybody in that show, well, you said, hey, I remember that at the station I worked at. The newsman, I had a guy named Michael Etheridge. Trust me, one of those things. But everybody you saw in there, the general managers, boy, what I can tell you about some of those. And like I said, program directors. But overall, every station always had that one young lady, receptionist, the boss's secretary, call her what you will. In this case, WKRP in Cincinnati hit it right on the head. And it was Lonnie Anderson. The body of Jane Mansfield and the personality of Marilyn Monroe. She's gone now, but her memory will always be in the minds and hearts of folks, especially if you worked in broadcasting. One of the most interesting places in the United States folks used to go was Las Vegas. That was the way everybody did. Hey, let's go to Las Vegas for fun. You had the showgirls, you had the gambling, you had the booze. That's what Las Vegas was. Well, except for one thing. New generation has come up and said, sorry, not interested. Turns out that Vegas is now on a downslide, and I mean a serious downslide. Right now, their traffic, people coming, is down 11%. Now, Las Vegas, 11%, when you consider 3 million people, that's a whole lot of folks. Hotels, finding plenty of rooms open. As a matter of fact, you see casinos looking like there's nobody there. That's the problem. People aren't going. Now, why is that? Well, some would say it's economics. People don't have the money to go. But here's an issue. A particular generation, Generation Z, okay? Those folks. When gambling, guess what young people gamble on? I didn't realize this until I saw some of the advertising on TV. Didn't think much about it. They don't go to Vegas to gamble. Know what they do? They go right here. This is what they gamble on. Turns out, you know how much online gambling is done every year? Right now, it's $12.68 billion. You heard me right, $12.68 billion online gambling. You're going to gamble. That's where the young people under the age of 35, 40 are going to. That's where they find their fun. They're not interested in showgirls and slots. They don't care. They're going slots, you're going to lose. They bet on things like football, basketball, baseball, whatever. Slots are not popular with Gen Z. They say it's a losing cause. You know, they're probably right. But things in Las Vegas have gotten so expensive. You know, I remember back in the old days, you go to Vegas and they had this shrimp cocktail they get for $1. That's disappeared. Doesn't exist anymore. You don't want to park your car in Vegas? Well, it used to be free. Now it's about $30 a day. Everything they add on your hotel bill called a resort fee. $30, $50, whatever it happens to be. They mark that on every day onto that price they tell you. Oh, it's only $125 per day. Until you find out it's going to cost you about $250 for every tax and fee they put on. People are figuring out that ain't going to work. And people now are saying, hey, not going to do it. Not going to play that game. Did you realize that as far as alcohol goes, those in the 20-year-old group, that faction, in 2001, 9% of them didn't drink. That's in 2001. 2024, that number jumped to 22%. And when you take a look at the people under the age of 35, how many of them are teetotalers? Teetotalers now total up to, you ready? 38%. So slots, showgirls, booze, Doesn't mean anything to the young people today. They want to gamble? Right there. Go to FanDuel, whatever you got, that's what they're going to do. So now that's what's happening. What's it doing in Las Vegas? I'll tell you what, right now, the unemployment numbers in Las Vegas are higher than any place in the United States. They're laying people off in droves. Hotels that we're going to build, not building. They're knocking down hotels. They're not making it. Until they turn Las Vegas into a Disneyland, probably people aren't going to go back. They may have shot their wad, as they say, because it may have gotten to the point where America's saying, and the young people coming up saying, sorry, I don't drink, I don't drive, I don't gamble except on my phone. Because social media and the phone is where Generation Z lives. You may not like it, I may not like it, but it's the reality. So there it is, folks. Las Vegas is dying, and people are losing their jobs. And all those housing and stuff they're building may end up becoming a ghost town because Vegas is losing its charm and cashing in its chips. Well, apparently a lot of folks are saying, I don't need no chips. I don't need no ladies. I don't need no booze. I got my phone. That's Generation Z, and now you know. What do you say we talk about something other than politics? How about sports? Or better yet, how about the National Football League? And to take it one step further, how about the Dallas Cowboys? Now, for the last few years, the Dallas Cowboys have been, well, to be honest, they suck. They've been terrible. They haven't done anything. They haven't won anything big in, decades? Guess you could say that. Well, here's something that just happened that maybe, just maybe, might turn the tide. Roger Staubach, Mr. Cowboy himself, the guy who created America's team, Roger Staubach, former midshipman from Navy, has just bought a stake in the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I don't know how much percentage he got of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know how much money he spent. He's got a lot of money because he has the Coca-Cola distributorship in the Dallas area, and pretty wealthy guy. But how much stake did he get into the Cowboys? I don't know. Jerry Jones is the owner of the Cowboys, has been for a very long time. And some would say he's the reason the Cowboys suck nowadays. I'm not going to argue with that. Maybe it is. Maybe the players he's selecting or the way he runs the team. Well, Roger Staubach has decided, hey, enough's enough. I'm getting back into the NFL, and I'm going back in to make the Cowboys a respectable team again. Now, you think of the Dallas Cowboys. I have been a fan of theirs since, well, I was in school. But keep in mind, I'm a kid from West Texas, El Paso, Texas, to be exact. So what you listened to on the radio and what you watched on TV back in those days, well, that was the Dallas Cowboys. They had an announcer. His name was Frank Gleber. He was one of their announcers. He was my hero. I worshipped him. I said, man, I got to sound like that guy does in broadcasting because that's what I was doing, play-by-play. Well, I had a chance to work with Frank Gleber at a Sun Bowl many years back. He was the announcer, and Don Perkins was his co-host. I was just a scorekeeper, if you will, on that. But, hey, you get to meet a hero. That's cool. But anyway, Dallas Cowboys used to be great. You think of the names of Don Meredith, Dandy Don Meredith in the 1960s. And then let's go up and talk about Emmitt Smith. Remember him? And how about Bullet Bob Hayes in the 1960s? One of the greatest receivers, could outrun anybody back in those days. Hall of Fame people. Troy Aikman, great cowboy. And then Ed Too Tall Jones. I'm just giving you some names here. And Michael Irvin, wide receiver. Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. These were all Cowboys. Bob Lilly, great defensive player. Tony Dorsett and Terrell Owens, T.O. We're talking Hall of Fame players for the Dallas Cowboys. They haven't had anybody like that in, decades? Well, maybe, just maybe, Roger Staubach can make a change. I don't know, and I can't guarantee it. But I believe he's going to try. And I believe he's going to do his very best to start bringing the right players in, finding the right quarterback, and maybe the right coach. Now, Roger Staubach a coach? I don't think so. But Could he get another coach like a Jimmy Johnson? Could he? I don't know. Who are they going to get? Can't tell you. Will they win anything big time in the NFL this year? Probably not. But maybe, just maybe, Roger the Dodger, Hall of Famer, All-American, midshipman from Annapolis, maybe, just maybe, he can turn the Cowboys around to make it once again America's team. Because right now, they are far from it.